Hey, I'm Pete Andruskevich, father of one boy in Thurston currently, and another who we planned on enrolling there in the next few years. I'm making this video to share the serious concerns that I have about the noisy, distraction-filled learning environment that all of our kids and teachers will be forced to endure for the next 4 years with the AAPS district's current construction plan, what we can do about it, how it affects the wider AAPS bond program, and what some of the other effects of staging are. First, we can all agree that getting our Thurston community into a new building ASAP is of the utmost importance, and AAP agrees that the current conditions at Thurston are the worst amongst the Northeast Ann Arbor Elementary School. AAPS spent 6 pages in their presentation to Thurston families about the current needs of the school, while none of the other presentations they've given to other schools, including Logan, even mention it. Thurston has no room. Even storage areas have been converted to teaching space, while Logan has 2 classrooms that are unoccupied, and rooms at Thurston have been subdivided to provide enough space even after a portable classroom unit was added. However, the AAPS district's plan for a new building is going to be terrible for the learning environment at Thurston. Their plan calls for the new Thurston building to be constructed on the current Thurston grounds just north of the existing building. There are many issues with this, but in my mind, the worst is that it requires our kids to try to learn and their teachers to try to teach them less than 40 feet from a construction site. That's 40 feet from the new building itself, but even closer to the construction perimeter and the heavy equipment necessary. The next 2 school years will have the new school built on site with all of the noise, distraction, dust, and safety concerns that go along with that. It also eliminates more than half of the areas our kids enjoy at recess, with the availability of the only fenced playground unknown. Now, I'm an engineer and think that it can be pretty neat to watch a construction project to see something new get built. But stopping by once a day to check it out, or going to see it some days as part of a class learning experience, is much different than being forced to focus and learn next to it for 7 hours a day, every day. I definitely plan on regularly trying to see progress on site with my son, but I know with his ADHD that his learning would suffer greatly if he had to go to school next to it, and I've heard the same from other parents whose kids have IEPs or 504 plans. With rates of ADHD and autism on the rise, my son isn't the only one who will struggle in this type of environment. The CDC estimates that between 12 and 15% of public school children in the U.S. have ADHD, which works out to just over 2,500 students across AAPS. Now, after the first 2 years building the new school, kids will be moved into it, and there will be another 2 years involving the demolition of the current Thurston building, the installation of the geothermal heating and cooling system for the new building on the grounds formerly occupied by the current building, and other grounds work including grading, paving the bus loops and paths, planting trees, creating the new field, and establishing new rain gardens. In the district's current plan, none of this work can start until our students are in the new Thurston building, since all of this work encroaches on the land occupied by the current building. This stretches out the entire timeline for construction on the Thurston site from 2 years, as is required for the new Logan and New King buildings, to 4 years total. That's more than half the time that any given student will be at Thurston. So, speaking of timelines, what can we do to help our kids and teachers stay focused and avoid construction for the next 4 years? We can build the new Logan School over the next 2 school years according to schedule, then stage our Thurston population at the Logan site while demolition, construction, geothermal, and grounds work all happen on the new Thurston over the following 2 school years. This gets the Thurston community into a badly needed new building in the same 2 school years as the current plan, but without the distractions and safety concerns of construction immediately next door. Then, after the new Thurston building is complete, the Thurston community moves into it. Meanwhile, Logan students are delayed by 2 school years moving into their new building, and the currently planned staging of King students at the current Logan building is also delayed by 2 years. The Thurston population of 525 students should easily fit in the new Logan building, which has a design capacity of 552, the same as New Thurston. As for the projected growth at Logan, they currently have space, and the portable classroom unit at Thurston now would still be moved to Logan over the summer of 2027 to provide more rooms during the extra 2 years that the Logan population is in their current school. This move is part of the district's plan already. They need that portable classroom unit at the current Logan site in order to house the 500 or so students attending King when they stage at Logan. While these delays to the Logan and King populations are definitely not ideal, Logan currently has much more space in the newer building, and King's situation isn't as dire as Thurston's either. So the big question is, which is worse? To force more than 1/3 of the Northeast elementary population to try to learn next to a highly distracting environment for 4 years, or to delay Logan and King's move from their current underpopulated and sufficient schools to new buildings by 2 years. It is the AAPS Board of Education and the Bond Committee's job to balance the needs of all the students across the city, to reach out to all of the affected communities, and to communicate with everyone on why the current decisions have been made. Instead, they're forging ahead with the construction firm's plan and schedule, not accepting any feedback or responsibility and standing up for the teachers and kids, especially in situations that require compromise across multiple schools, such as engaging Thurston, Logan, and King communities. We should be working together to find the best solution for everyone here. Now, how would this change in plans really affect the wider AAPS bond project? I've heard it argued that it could vastly disrupt the entire schedule and financing of the bond, costing millions. Unfortunately, there have not been any actual numbers, projections, or timelines produced, just hand-waving, and I just don't see how. First, this would not be an unplanned delay, where everyone is sitting around idle but still getting paid, all the supplies are bought but are unused, and all the equipment is already on site and can't be used elsewhere. Changes in cost and scheduling for a planned delay are much, much smaller and can be mitigated. Second, people and equipment would be on site at Thurston for only 2 years in our plan, instead of 4 in the district's, saving that time and money for the rest of the project. Third, these changes to Thurston and King schedules would actually help to balance the workload more evenly across the project. Shown here is the entire bond project across AAPS schools for Phase 2, and as you can see, it's currently front-loaded with more new construction happening earlier on. If we were to move Thurston and King back by 2 years each, as is necessary with our proposed plan, it would help distribute the work over the span of the entire schedule more evenly, which would allow for better utilization of contractors and resources to save money. And finally, if it really is preferred by the construction company to front-load the schedule, in a project of this scale, there is always other work that can be pulled up sooner to minimize overall impacts. For example, a replacement for Carpenter Elementary is currently scheduled to be built over the same period that New King would slide back into. But the current Carpenter building was rated as first on the district's facilities condition assessment priority list, meaning that it was in the worst shape. If that build was slid forward by 3 to 4 school years, it would fill the same time slot that Thurston would be vacating while addressing another huge need in the wider AAPS community. Another negative impact that I've heard and read was that busing for Thurston kids during staging would cost $5 million. This one really just can't be true. Thurston and New Logan are half a mile apart, with no major roads to cross between them, and are easily walkable or drivable for most families currently doing so. There would be no need for busing between the schools. Existing bus routes would similarly need to travel only slightly further, making any differences there negligible. The change in location of the school would change the boundaries for who was eligible for busing within the attendance area. shifting from the yellow arc, which is 1¼ miles from the current Thurston School, to the red arc, which is the same distance but centered on the new Logan location, results in the area outlined in black that would be newly eligible for busing. Most of this area is Domino's Farms. I count only 6 houses in this area. Even if all of them had kids attending Thurston that were now eligible to be bused, this would in no way cost anywhere near the millions that has been thrown out there as the price tag. If we do decide to stage the Thurston community, we can absolutely end up with a better site plan once New Thurston is built, because the new and the old building's footprints could overlap. This would allow us to place the new building, with all of the hard design work and interior unchanged from the district's plan, where the current Thurston sits, as shown in this hypothetical sketch. This allows us to keep much more green space, twice the soccer fields, and even all the existing playgrounds if so desired. It would also enable all of the safety measures that AAPS pointed out in their videos to be added, such as the separate bus loop and drive line, a longer drive line to move traffic off of Prairie Street, more parking, and a fire lane encircling the building. This is just one of many possibilities that we could envision with the freedom of the site enabled by staging. Other benefits of staging would be that the Thurston Nature Center and existing rain gardens, oak savanna, butterfly gardens, and raised garden beds could be retained in their entirety, with all construction happening further to the south. This would also place the new building on top of soil already compacted by the old building, providing a stable base and allowing the new building to benefit from the decades of work that have gone into natural measures to prevent flooding in the area. This mitigates the risk of flooding in the new building that just couldn't be done if it were located further north, closer to the pond, at least not without significant additional costs of more site grading and infill necessary to build up a more northerly location for the school. The locations possible for the new Thurston building enabled by our plan will reduce maintenance costs and risk for AAPS in future decades. In conclusion, if you are concerned about your kids learning right next to construction for 4 years, about the lack of play and green space available in the district's plan for the new Thurston grounds, about the increased risk of flooding that is being ignored by the district and their construction company, or about the damage to the Thurston Nature Center, please join us at letthurstonplay.com, where you can find all of this information, and by letting the AAPS Board of Education know at their meetings through the link in the video description that we need a better plan. Thank you.